Welcome back to today's Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a truly mind-bending philosophical journey. We're talking about concepts that bridge ancient metaphysics directly with modern science. If you've ever sat back and wondered about the ultimate nature of reality, or, how our physical everyday world connects to some infinite source, well, you're in the right place. We're going to explore exactly that by diving into the profound teachings of Advaita Vedanta, specifically as they were presented by Swami Vivekananda. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap we've got for today. First up, we'll tackle what's known as the impossible question. From there, we'll look through the veil of Maya before exploring the eternal subject. Then we'll unpack this idea of evolution from within. And finally, we'll bring the whole shebang together with the harmony of head and heart.
All right, Section 1, the impossible question. How did the infinite become finite?
Now, this is the central paradox that acts as the absolute bedrock of Advaita philosophy. And honestly, it's going to challenge literally everything we assume about how the universe works. Here is the massive question that philosophers have wrestled with for centuries. How exactly has the infinite, the absolute, become the finite? Think about it. How does something with absolutely no boundaries, no beginning, and no end suddenly become boxed into the material and mental world we see around us? I'm talking about the stars, the earth, our bodies, our very thoughts. Well, to answer that, we actually have to take a step back and examine how we even ask questions in the first place. So think about a falling stone. When we see a stone drop, our brain immediately goes, why? Right? This perfectly illustrates the law of causation. We just naturally assume that a cause precedes an event, an effect succeeds it, and therefore everything in the universe is totally interdependent. Asking why automatically takes for granted that whatever is happening is bound by and dependent on something else that came before it. This whole law of precedence and succession, it's basically the necessary operating system for all of our everyday thinking. But here's the catch, and it reveals a massive, fundamental flaw in our original question. To ask what caused the absolute actually drags the infinite down to the level of our dependent everyday universe. The absolute is, by its very definition, entirely free and unbound. In the absolute, there is zero time, zero space, and zero causation. So to ask why the infinite became finite, it's a total self-contradiction. It's a completely impossible question. Actually, even brilliant philosophers like Arthur Schopenhauer tripped up here. He tried to substitute human will as the cause of the universe. But will implies change and consciousness, and those things only exist after the absolute degenerates into the phenomenal universe. Bottom line, you simply cannot apply the rules of the finite to the infinite. No way. Moving right along to Section 2, the veil of Maya, the glass of manifestation. So if we can't logically ask what caused the absolute to change, what do? Well, we have to look at how it simply appears to our human minds as this varied, crazy universe. The texts explain that the absolute is seen through a triad of perception: time, space, and causation. You can think of these three things kind of like a glass or a lens that we're constantly looking through. Time is entirely dependent on the state of our mind. Space requires limits and objects to even make sense. And causation relies on the succession of events within time and space. But here is the crazy part. None of these three have any real independent existence of their own. You can't just reach out and catch time or hold causation in your hand. And that brings us to a really absolutely crucial definition in Advaita: Maya. Maya is this exact combination of time, space, and causation that creates what we call name and form. It's super fascinating because Maya isn't entirely existent because it depends on other things, but it's also not totally non-existent because obviously we experience the universe through it every single day. It's simply the temporary, fleeting form that things take. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. We can visualize this with a super simple analogy. Picture the absolute as an infinite, formless ocean. The universe, on the other hand, is a wave. It's bound by Maya and it takes on a specific name and form. Now, the wave is absolutely 100% the exact same water as the ocean. The only thing making them different is the temporary Maya of the wave's form. The very second that wave subsides, the form vanishes completely, but the water remains. Our universe is basically just various waves on the vast ocean of the absolute. Which brings us to Section 3, the eternal subject, finding God within. Okay, so now that we've zoomed way out to the cosmic scale of oceans and waves, we need to shift our focus inward, right down to the deeply personal level. To really grasp the concept of God in Advaita, we have to recognize what's called the flaw of objectification.
See, whenever we gain knowledge about something, like let's say a physical chair, we go through a specific process. We have a perception, we limit it with our mind, and then we project it outward as an object to be known. But God cannot be known like that. God is the eternal witness, the ultimate subject. You can't just take the essence of your own soul, project it outside of yourself, and stare at it like it's a piece of furniture. Knowledge requires objectification, which is exactly why God is technically unknowable. Not because God isn't there, but because God is infinitely nearer and higher than any object you could ever possibly perceive.
This actually leads to one of the most profound passages in all of Vedanta. He that is the essence of your soul, thou art that. Let's pause on that. What this means for you, right now, is that God is the eternal subject of literally everything. He is your very self. When we try to call God a father or some friend standing on a cloud far away, we're trying to turn God into an object. But God is the soul of your soul. You breathe in and through him.
Let's transition to section 4, evolution from within, conquering the environment. So what does this all mean? How does this subjective understanding actually impact our day-to-day lives? Well, in this philosophy, true evolution isn't about changing the outside world at all. It's entirely about changing yourself. The source text uses some totally fascinating analogies to explain this. It talks about an amoeba struggling against its environment to gain a new body, or a little fish evolving wings to become a bird and escape predators. The whole point of these metaphors is that the change is 100% internal and subjective. The environment? It's just an obstacle holding down a potential power that's already there. According to Advaita, morality and the conquest of evil work the exact same way. You don't conquer anger by destroying every single thing in the world that makes you angry, right? You conquer it by perfecting your own subjective self so that finite nature literally no longer has any control over you. Absolute game changer.
Historically speaking, this profound focus on internal reality has stepped in to save human thought time and time again. Way back before Buddha, India was facing this crude, hideous materialism. Then Buddha came along and brought the moral side of Vedanta to the masses. Jump forward 1,000 years, superstition had taken over again, and Shankaracharya arose to rationalize the whole philosophy. Fast forward to today, as we face modern scientific materialism, and Advaita provides this perfect bridge. Modern science is currently concluding that all things are just manifestations of one single energy. Metaphysics reached that exact same conclusion centuries ago, simply by searching the mind to find the universal one.
So the crucial point is, well, let's get into section 5, harmony of head and heart, the ultimate synthesis. How do we take this incredibly vast, hyper-rational philosophy and actually live it out in a way that's compassionate and inclusive? To figure that out, let's impartially compare Advaita with dualism, which is the more common religious framework most of us know. Dualism relies on externalizing God, placing him outside the universe. It often uses a fear of punishment to enforce morality, and it tends to be pretty exclusive, meaning groups might believe God has arbitrary favorites. Advaita, on the flip side, is entirely non-destructive and totally inclusive. It views the divine as the complete sum total of all existence. But here is the real beauty of the Advaita standpoint. It doesn't fight the dualist. Advaita fully recognizes that dualism is a perfectly natural, common-sense explanation for less educated minds, or just for folks who are at a different stage of their development. The dualist is just walking on a different part of the exact same road, ultimately heading toward the exact same goal. Because at the end of the day, the goal of the Vedantist isn't some rigid, one-sided intellectualism. The infinite is described with 3 inseparable attributes: infinite existence, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. Think about it. You cannot have true knowledge without love, or existence without knowledge. The ultimate goal is the perfect, seamless harmony of all 3. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful challenge. History has shown us the breathtaking, infinite patience and mercy of Buddha's heart. It has also shown us the scorching, brilliant light of Shankaracharya's rational intellect. Advaita tells us that to reach our ultimate freedom, we absolutely need both. We need that perfect harmony of head and heart. So as you go about your day, keeping in mind that the infinite resides within you as your very self, ask yourself, how will you combine the infinite rational intellect of Shankaracharya with the boundless loving heart of Buddha in your own life? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.